Life is sustained by three main essentials. These are air, water, and food. While air and water are usually freely available, food cannot be consumed until much energy has been expended. Food can be proteinous, rich in minerals, and vitamins, or rich in energy. Proteins are required by the body for the repair of body tissues. Minerals and vitamins are important for maintaining normal body functions. Carbohydrates and fat provide the fuel that drives the body. One of the cheapest sources of carbohydrate is cassava. Cassava is a subsistence crop of predominantly low-income families in rural and urban areas in Nigeria. Cassava products are consumed at least once a day by most families. More recent research claims that cassava contributes 53% of the bulk of the Nigerian diet and 53.4% of the national calorie intake. The processing of cassava is important for improving the quality of the consumed product, reducing bulk and extending shelf life. In Nigeria, cassava is processed into gari, lafun, and fufu. Of these, fufu is the product that is the quickest to produce and with the least drudgery. Fufu is prepared by the submerged fermentation of peeled cassava roots. According to existing research, when the roots are sufficiently soft, they are broken by hand and fibers are removed by manual sieving, copiously adding water to the softened mass on a nylon or cloth screen. The sieved mass is then left to sediment for about 24 hours. The water is then decanted and the filtrate is dewatered by placing it in sacks, pressing with heavy stones and leaving the sacks overnight. The resultant cake is the fufu wet paste. The product can be sold in this wet paste form or can be converted to a ready-to-eat product by mixing an optimum quantity of the paste and boiling water over heat and stirring continuously with a strong and thick spatula until the texture is firmer. This edible form is the ready-to-eat fufu. The form is consumed with fish, meat, vegetable stew, or soup. That was the traditional process of fufu processing before the 17th of January 2000, when a project was signed between the Natural Resources Institute of the University of Greenwich, Kent, United Kingdom, and the University of Agriculture, Abeokuta, Nigeria. The main thrust of the three-year project was to identify an approach for the commercialization of cassava products with special emphasis on fufu in southwest Nigeria that will contribute to poverty reduction and sustainable livelihoods. Specifically, the project set out to achieve the following objectives: analysis of the existing contribution of traditional cassava processing to rural livelihoods, gather baseline data to identify the existing contribution of cassava processing to household livelihood systems. Define possible improvements to traditional processing methods. Validation of the technical options to improve fufu processing and commercialize it, and definition of how cassava processing could be commercialized to give the maximum benefits to sustainable rural livelihoods. To achieve these objectives, fund was provided by the Department for International Development in the United Kingdom, and a multidisciplinary research team was put in place by the Natural Resources Institute and the University of Agriculture, Abeokuta. From the Natural Resources Institute, they are Professor Andrew Westby, food scientist and project leader; Ms. Joanna White, social anthropologist; Mr. Douglas Pierce, market economist; and Mr. Keith Tomlins, food scientist. From the University of Agriculture, Abeokuta, the researchers are Professor Ulushola Oyewole, food microbiologist and coordinator, Nigerian team; Dr. Latif Sanni, food technologist; Dr. Adewale, agricultural economist; Dr. Kolawole Adebayo, agricultural extensionist; and Mr. Idris Ayinde, agricultural economist. This multidisciplinary team realized from its inception that the objectives of the project cannot be attained without a very close interaction amongst the various disciplines involved. While specific tasks were assigned to each of social, economic, and technical group, regular joint actions and cross-discipline interactions made the outputs from each group agree with the overall aim of identifying ways of commercialization of a traditional food while sustaining the livelihoods of the local processors. For instance, the team jointly determined 4 main criteria which, from social, economic, and technical perspectives, will provide the needed diversity for understanding the involvement of local processors in fufu processing. These are relative access to urban and rural market, relative importance of cassava processing as a means of livelihood, relative prominence of fufu processing as a livelihood activity, and level of commercialization of cassava processing activities. Based on this criteria, the team went on a preliminary visit to 3 fufu processing locations randomly selected from a list of 12 proposed villages to have a first-hand impression of field-level situation in fufu processing and include criteria considered important by field-level extension officers and local processors in the selection of study locations for the study. A second round of visit was then made to select locations that meet some of the criteria. At the end of the exercise, the team finally selected 5 cassava processing locations. These are Ereji near Ijebu-Ode, Major Fufu Processing, limited access to market; Ilewo-Orile, Minor Fufu Processing, limited access to market; Oderemo, Major Fufu Processing location, high access to market; Ilaro, Major Fufu Processing, high access to market; Soso near Shagamu, Major Fufu Processing, limited access to market. 5 fufu transit locations. These are Ifo, Major Fufu assembly market linking Ilaro and environs to Lagos. Ogijo, Fufu transit market for products from Soso and environs via Ikorodu to Lagos. Ikorodu, major transit market from Ogijo to Lagos. Shagamu, minor consumption center for Fufu from Soso. Omiadio, minor transit location for Fufu sold in some locations in Ibadan. Major Fufu consumption centers, these are Lagos, final destination market for Fufu from Ereji, Oderemo, Ilaro, and Soso. Abeokuta, final destination market for Fufu from Ilewo Orile. And Ibadan, final destination market for Fufu via Omiadio. By working together in this manner, the social partners and the team led the way in studying the contribution of cassava processing to livelihoods. The economic partners led the way in confirming potential market demand and examining market channels, while the technical partners led the way in developing and testing improved Fufu processing options. But there are also situations where partners across disciplines work together to implement parts of the project. For example, the economic and technical partners together took improved products emerging from the project to the three major Fufu consumption centers, Lagos, Abeokuta, and Ibadan, to market test the developed products. At the end of this round of activities, the entire team converged again to select options for improving Fufu processing in southwest Nigeria. To achieve this, each member of the team reviewed the activities of the project over the past year and proposed options that processors may find attractive for commercializing Fufu processing and sustaining the livelihoods of local processors. These options were again discussed with processor groups in the various Fufu processing locations selected for the project. The outcome of this exercise was a refinement of their options by the technical partners in the team, the determination of the economic viability of the technical options by the economic group, and the determination of the potential impacts of commercialization by the social partners.
Technical team in the work, we have identified some problems, and we'll be able to come out with some solutions which we are trying to now transfer to the processors. The first problem of water usage, economic use of water. We found out that there are some processing centers that are already having a good method, which we have already modified in our laboratory. And it's part of our package that we are telling other people that they can still process fufu and making use of a very small amount of water. Thereby, at the end of the day, they will achieve a lot of profits.
When you remove the middlemen you have in it for market, the amount of profit that accrues to the processor is higher. But I imagine that these ones are, because they are mainly perhaps housewives, I imagine that their husbands also have other sources of incomes. You remember that in the villages, you find that the husbands sell part of their produce to their wives, and but I think there's more of a closeness in terms of the husband's income levels and the wife. It's like a family, close-knit income thing. What I see here is more like the wife is doing her own business separate from the family. So they are okay with their income levels.
So, at the end of the project, what technical options did this multidisciplinary research team propose for the commercialization of fufu processing and sustaining local livelihoods in southwest Nigeria? Use of surface tanks. The construction of surface tanks facilitates the soaking of cassava tubers and can increase the volume of fufu processed per cycle. Different types of tank can be constructed, but the most efficient are those with accessible stoppers or taps to control water flow and drain off, and those with effective drainage areas. They save on the time and drudgery involved in emptying the tanks by hand. They can be constructed by processors themselves or rented from service providers. Double fermentation with grater. This processing method found in Oderemo is particularly suited to locations where water is scarce or costly and results in a product with a high starch content. This method requires the use of a grater which is either owned by large-scale processors or more commonly hired from service providers. One of the advantages of this technology is that it can also be used for the production of other foodstuffs such as gari and lafun. Dry sieving. This method of sieving cassava mash is associated with the use of limited amounts of water in fufu processing. Where water is a scarce resource, the potential of this practice to benefit the processor is high. Twin layers of packaging. The double packaging method is used to extend the shelf life of wet paste and could be promoted in locations which have less regular market access. Drying of fufu. The production of dried fufu by drying wet paste has the potential to be a time, labor, and energy-saving activity in the production of ready-to-eat fufu and has provided a new dried product which has a high potential market among urban consumers. Market linkages. There may be potential for processors to be advised on improving market links. The formation of fufu sellers associations can serve the needs of their members well in negotiating prices for the fufu produced. They could also be used as entry points for discussing improvements to the fufu processing and marketing system and new market opportunities. As processors rely heavily on trusted market relationships, they will need to be assured of new markets before they embark on any new initiatives.
Well, I think we've confirmed there's a lot of potential to improve the processing methods. And processors are very interested in learning from each other and learning from the findings of the project. For example, we have already identified different types of fufu produced using different methods and different kinds of packaging to improve shelf life. But we're now talking to processors about the potential for the drying fufu. I think different locations have different needs. So we have certain locations, for example, Oderemo, who are particularly interested in the drying potential and may even have the capital to purchase equipment themselves. Another way forward is for us to help link these wet paste producers to the people who have drying facilities in the urban centres who are accessing urban markets and export markets. And I think in this kind of location, these kind of processors will be very interested in providing high quantities of wet paste to the commercial enterprises who can then dry the fufu and access alternative markets. So various kinds of potential here, and I'm very happy so far that the processors are very receptive to our ideas.
The conclusion of this project is already yielding fruitful dividends. The European Union has provided additional fund for the research team to take its work into the next logical phase, the development of the small and medium-scale enterprise sector producing cassava-based products to meet emerging urban demand in West Africa. The new project is expanded to study locations in Ghana and other cassava-based products such as tapioca, cassava grits, Agbalima, and Konkunte. New partners are also involved in the new project. These are the Institute for Advanced Studies, Vienna, Austria; University of Ghana, Legon, Ghana; Food Research Institute, Ghana; and Feed and Flour, Ghana Limited. The achievements of the multidisciplinary team in the Fufu Commercialization project has no doubt been immense. The cassava farmer, the cassava processor, the marketers of cassava products, and other stakeholders in the cassava sector can have a new hope that the sustainability of their livelihood is assured even as new products and actors are emerging in the cassava business.